So hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Spice of Lifecycle Marketing, how to add flavor to the customer journey. My name is Kelsey. I am Demand Gen Manager here at Acton, and I will be your moderator for the presentation. We have a great webinar in store for you today, so I hope you are hungry for some knowledge because we are going to be showing you how to beef up your customer journey. So grab those recipe books. You're going to be wanting to take some notes, take it back to your marketing strategy. I see people are still joining. So in the interim, I am going to go through some housekeeping. Let's see. Today's webinar is being recorded. We will send out the recording for the webinar within 24 to 48 hours. Feel free to share that with your colleagues. If you enjoyed the webinar, we'd be happy for you to share that out. There will be a brief Q&A at the end of this presentation as well. As you get questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A chat. I'll be checking periodically and flagging for our presenters to answer at the end. If we don't get to your questions, we will be replying back via email, so don't worry, we will be in touch. There is going to be a brief survey as well at the finish of this webinar, so please take the time to do it. It should only take about 30 seconds for questions. We'd love your feedback. It helps us create better content for our webinars and helps us create great webinars for you in the future. Lastly, please use the chat. We'd love to hear what you're thinking as we're presenting today. We'll also be sharing some resources for you. So check out the chat, connect with your peers. Let us know how you plan to use some of these tips into your marketing strategy. We'd love to hear it. And with that, let's introduce today's seasoned experts. I'm joined today with two of my Acton colleagues and seasoned experts. First, we have Dom Katabe. Dom is the Director of Demand Generation at Acton. Professionally, he is most excited about using data to drive high-growth marketing programs through the entire funnel, awareness to revenue across a healthy mix of inbound and outbound channels. Outside of work, you can find him at the gym, lifting weights, playing basketball, hitting the slopes of Mount Hood, or spending time with family and friends. He's passionate about driving revenue growth, health and fitness, traveling the world, video games, and of course, tech. He's joined today with Jennifer Blanco, who is Senior Customer Marketing Manager here at Acton. She is a dedicated customer advocate who turned her passion for the customer journey into a career. Jennifer also sits on the University of Oregon Portland Chapter Alumni Board, where she organizes networking activities for recent alumni. I think we can agree that we are in some great hands today. So with that, Jennifer, why don't you walk us through what's on today's menu?
All right. Well, thanks so much, Kelsey. Super excited to be here with everybody today. We have a great tasting menu in store for you. We're going to walk through the customer life cycle. We're going to look at understanding your entire customer journey and identifying ICPs. Then we're going to talk through using everything that you have at your disposal in the kitchen. And finally, we are going to dive into how you can utilize some of your sous chefs. Before I hand it off to Dom for the first course, we have a poll, I believe. So Kelsey, you'll get that poll up. And our question is, where do you feel that you have the biggest gaps in your customer journey? And also, let me preface that there are no right or wrong answers here. And we are going to go through the entire customer journey. So hopefully we'll cover off on where the needs are. And as these are coming in, really interesting kind of even spit or even mix of things. And then, all right, top of funnel, middle funnel, and retention look like they're taking the cake, so to speak. So fun. Yeah, before Kelsey, or I think, yeah, Kelsey's going to share out those results. But this is really great to see. And like I said, we're going to cover off on all of the pieces within that customer life cycle. So I will turn it over to Dom for our first course.
All right. So To kick us off, we started by mentioning our customer lifecycle framework. So you think about a traditional funnel, start at the top, get smaller towards the bottom. For the sake of this discussion, we're going to be focusing on the bottom funnel and how it also expands back open at the bottom when you get to the customer side. So we typically look at our funnel in 3 different segments. You got your get, keep, grow. So get customers, everything that's happening on the new business side, bringing leads into your systems, converting them to MQLs down the funnel to hopefully close won opportunities. And then the keep and grow portion is on the customer side around not only developing the use of your services and products within your customer base, but also finding opportunities to grow and expand within those. So to kick us off, being the new business focused person on our end, I'll start with the get section. If you don't mind skipping to the next slide. Perfect. So getting customers in the door. I think in any state, everybody, it should be a priority for most organizations. I think it's especially prominent now where we're seeing some economic uncertainty, especially in tech. Nobody's a stranger to that. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about that. So I'd say the most important piece when you're looking at the top of the funnel and the customer journey is that you're matching both your content and the level of engagement that you are putting in front of prospects with where they're at in the funnel. We're not in a day and age anymore where you can kind of just cast a net and hope that you get enough fish coming back into the boat. That's not how you get the volume to make a full course meal, and it's also not how you necessarily get the fish that you want. So if you look at a traditional funnel, it starts with awareness across a variety of channels. We specifically are in most of the big channels. I'd say display, search, social, events, webinars. These are more top of funnel type activities where you're not necessarily trying to sell anything. Like for using this webinar as an example, like you want to create or foster conversations and create thought leadership that really shows that you know what you're talking about and that your product or service is going to benefit your prospects in a way that helps them grow and succeed as well. So it's basically you're getting your name in the door. The next step I mentioned was the MQL portion, which to get there, you're going to be spending a lot of time nurturing these leads. I think as we've developed as not just tech wise, but with AI and the way that we purchase things and the amount of research that goes in prior to ever even filling out a form on a website, it's really important to make sure that you're educating prospects equally so as you would your customers who are using your product. Like they need to know why they're looking at your solutions. They need to be pointed to the pain points that they're experiencing or maybe don't even realize they're experiencing, and their nurture programs are what you do that. So when you're bringing leads in the door, like most leads aren't going to be ready for sales right out the gate. They're filling out a demo request, sure, pass that over to sales. But if someone's coming in, downloading a piece of content, an ebook, or just taking a look at a blog, like that doesn't really indicate person intent. So you need to see that continuous stream coming in of engagement in order to get to a place where you're passing things that are actually ready for sales, and you're not only wasting the time of your sales team, but also the time of the prospects, because nobody likes being sold to if they're not interested in what you have to offer. Next slide, please. So what that looks like, and MQL is kind of a last stage in a lot of marketing organizations, and that shouldn't be the case. I think it's really important to stay constant and present from start to finish, and then from start of customer journey to hopefully there is no finish line there. Like you want to keep long lifetime value or lifetime customers. So it's really important to continue nurturing accounts after MQLs occur. If I come in, I'm looking at a product, I'm not the only buyer in most purchases, especially for marketing solutions. I'm sure that's the case for any tech, whether you're selling to IT, selling into sales, selling into customer experience, whatever it is. There's going to be more than one buyer. So there's a lot of value in expanding within the accounts and trying to bring in that buying committee. You're not just selling to Dom, you're selling to Jennifer, you're selling to Kelsey, you're selling to all these people and getting them involved early. That way the sales team has a much easier job getting to a closing position. And then the last piece I'll cover here is just the types of content at each stage. Pre-sale is going to look a little bit different. As I mentioned before, your awareness programs are going to be really focused on getting your name out there, establishing your brand, putting yourself in a position where people can trust what you have to say and share. So providing things like thought leadership, blogs, topical pieces that are related to your product and service. And as you continue to see that engagement increase down the funnel, that's when you start positioning stuff more specific to your product. use cases, product related content, case studies. And then at the very bottom, either near MQL or after things have gotten to an MQL state, that's when you start getting a little bit closer to purchase, true purchase engagement, which is looking at ROI calculators, product demos, demo requests, whatever that is. And it'll look a little different from org to org, depending on what you have to offer. But those are the general buckets that we kind of look at things when we're looking at the different content at each stage. So yeah, you built your nurture stream, you got things from MQL, and hopefully this turned into closed won ops, which gets us to the first part of the customer side of this, which is keeping your customers.
That's right. So congratulations, everybody. Things can go one of two ways. You either don't close the business or you close the business. But because we are talking about the full life cycle today, we're going to talk about what happens when you close the business. So you all just got some new business, and now it is really critical for you to make sure that you create a great experience for your customers and set up a really fabulous foundation. I saw there that I think actually this sort of keep and retain customers is where the majority of people said that they had an opportunity to maybe focus on. And so we're going to dive right in. And one of the reasons that this is so important today, Dom already mentioned, we are in sort of a difficult economic state right now, and people are really doubling down on retaining their customers. I just read an article in Forbes that said it costs anywhere from 5 to 7 times the amount to go out and get a new customer as it does to retain your existing customers. So this is definitely an area of focus and an opportunity for you to help your business succeed. So getting back to that, congratulations, you just closed new business. You have a seed that you get to go and you get to plant. And now it is your job to help nurture, water, and care for that seed to make sure that it is successful and that it grows into a beautiful flower or summer squash or something delicious like that. And because we have our methodology, the get, keep, grow, which I love because it's so simple, I think that that's where we start. You don't have to overthink things. There's a lot of simplicity in keeping it simple. And so starting out when you sign on a new customer or you have somebody that comes on for new service, you can send them a welcome message. This can be a one-off email. There might be a gifting component involved. You can create a welcome series where you share your excitement. You say how excited you are to partner with them. Thank you, or thank them for trusting you and your team. And then you can lay down some tips or tricks. Maybe these are helpful bookmarks like your login page, information on how to work with your support team. Maybe it's sending over, intros. This is the account team that's going to support you. Or you can even say, hey, here's the timeline. This is what you can expect from us over the next couple of weeks or couple of months, depending on sort of that engagement and that journey that you're building out. So I think the welcome series and creating that initial touch point is sort of the first pillar of that keep motion, because ultimately what you want to do is you want to create a great journey. So you have that welcome series, and then what other types of content can you create that are always on, that are creating those touch points, right? I like to think about it as top of inbox, right? Top of inbox, top of mind. I'm a customer marketer, and so my job is to create ultimately a parallel relationship with the customer. In our case, we have a lot of individuals who are creating sort of those one-on-one relationships, whether it's your account management or through our customer support and customer success teams. But I'm continuing to nurture that relationship along as well. So people know that we're always one click away. So that's through newsletters. This is what's happening with Acton. Here's things that you should be aware of, things that are going to be helpful for you. We have a series that goes out on tips and tricks, how to utilize your tool, and what's coming down the road as well for product updates. So those are things that can always be on, sort of nurturing the relationship and making sure that your customer is getting use and value out of what it is that you're offering. And then you can get into custom touch points, depending on what kind of data you have available. That's when you can really create some personalized engagement based off of where somebody is within the life cycle, or based off of information that you have on that customer. And we'll get into ICP just a little bit later. So when you move from that keep to grow phase, right? Ultimately, this is your goal. You are trying to get to a beautiful table of summer squash, if you will. And how do you get there? Obviously, you have all of that stuff that you're doing in the keep phase, right? So you want to make sure that you're nurturing and you're watering all of those plants, because you want to get to a place where you have great foundation and trust that's built right with your customer base. So then you can start to maybe approach cross-sell and upsell opportunities. And these become so much easier. These are easier conversations to have and easier motions to put in place when you have that foundational trust, because then your customer realizes, hey, this is something that's mutually beneficial. You're not trying to just upsell me to help your bottom line. I see that you're invested in my success, and this is an opportunity for me to be more successful. So that's really what you're trying to get to here. And you think about what was the end of that growth stage? It was referrals. And that is where advocacy comes into play. I'm a huge proponent of advocacy, and this is really where you can start to identify who are your advocates, who are the power users, who are people that are constantly reaching out or providing product feedback, who within the sales cycle did somebody on your sales team really identify as, hey, they get it, or they already love us. Like, those are the people that we are looking for, because your advocates then will provide you with references and referrals and reviews. They'll participate in co-marketing activities, maybe like a webinar or a case study, or participate speaking at an event. And when you get those advocates starting to participate in things like that, then we actually come sort of full circle, right? So I know we showed you something that was horizontal, but really when you get to that advocacy stage, then customers are starting to pipe into what can be used to generate new business. So that's when things get really exciting. And that's how you see that everything is really tied together. We're all in this together. And then you can take those advocacy seeds and you plant them to create new business, and you can do it all over again. So switching temperatures a little bit, we're going to move over to the second course that we have, which is understanding the journey. And this is where ICPs come into play. And hey, what kind of marketer would I be if I didn't jump on the Barbenheimer bandwagon and pull this up for our ICP? Interesting fact, I read that the marketing team actually had a higher budget to market Barbie the movie than they did to create the movie. So obviously really impressive stuff that they're doing. I digress. So let's get back on track and talk through who our ICPs would be within the spice of the life cycle market. We have Ina Garden here on the left and Gordon Ramsay here on the right. I understand that not everybody is in the food scene. This obviously plays really well into my lifestyle. I am a foodie and loved the theme that Kelsey put together here. But for anybody that doesn't know, these are two sort of celebrity chefs, and I have to call that out because when we were walking through this, Dom asked me who the mom in the kitchen was. So true story. And that means that there's probably somebody on this webinar that was wondering the same thing. So thinking about how and why do you develop your ICP or your ideal customer profile? Really what you're trying to do here is you're looking at your current customer base and trying to figure out, where are you winning? Where have you been successful? What types of business are you closing? What is the size of that business? What industry? Where are they located? And then more specifically, what needs are you meeting and what value are you providing providing for them. And when you can answer all of those questions, then you have this ICP, you know who to go after, and you know how to communicate that with them to fill in sort of the answers to some of those questions. So I love Ina. We're going to stick with her. But before we get any further, we have one more poll. And we are asking, how confident are you today in your current ICP or your ideal customer profile? Coming in there. All right. We got a good mix. I think the majority of people, maybe not. All right. So people are kind of all over the place, pretty confident to kind of confident. Thank you very much for that feedback. I think that it goes to show that even if you have an ICP that somebody's put a lot of time into, you need to make sure that you're sharing that information throughout your organization and make sure that people really understand who it is that you're going after and that you're targeting and that you're trying to really solve for, because that's where you're going to be winning. So when we get to the ICP and then we start talking through the customer journey, you know, how does an ICP end up informing that customer journey? And this really is kind of where marketing automation comes into play, right? It's all about what kind of data you have and what is informing the decision making, and then how can you target the right content at the right time in order for people to maybe make the right decision in the buying phase, or to help your customer move through that keep and grow journey. Right? So this is setting up maybe even some dynamic content in that welcome series based off of the ICP or any of your data points that can really start to create a personalized experience for your customer based off of the information that you have. You can begin to create segmented lists based off of your ICP, so targeting those lists with different forms of content. And then you can create APs, again, based off of, you know, what kind of data point do you have and how can you personalize that content to help move somebody further through that customer journey. And before I hand it off to Dom to take us back to the front of the house, I had one more thing that I want to share. Why is this all important, really, right? So it goes back to advocates. And if you're getting the story right, and you know who your ICP is, and if you can really help move them through the funnel, through the entire customer journey, then those advocates are going to help tell your story. They're going to help validate it, and they're going to help grow your business. And hopefully we are providing value, but just in case, I am an Ina Garden advocate, and I want to share one of my favorite recipes with you. This is a picture of Ina's panna cotta with fresh raspberry sauce. If you have nothing more that you're taking away from this presentation, you're going to get a link to this, and it's going to become your new go-to dessert. You're going to be asked to bring dessert to every party that you go to after you make this. It's delicious. You can't go wrong, but I'm big on providing value. I want to make sure that I threw something fun in there because I also just love the spice of life cycle theme that we have going on. So Dom, I'll hand it back over to you in the kitchen.
Back to the kitchen. Let's go. What does AP mean? That's automated programs, zero nurture streams. Sorry, just answering a question in the quick question in the notes. So back to ICP. So Jennifer covered some great content on the kinds of things to look at. And I think what the question that you might be left with is like, okay, now I know what to look for. Where do I begin, kind of thing. So the recommendation that I make for anybody who's trying to develop or further develop their ICP is to analyze the stuff that's coming into their systems. So I always start with pipeline. Look at all of your opportunities for the last 6 months, whether they closed won or closed lost, to understand what profiles are regularly opening ops and which ones are regularly being closed won. And I think there's one caveat you need to be careful of is if you're looking historically, you're always going to have some bias, because if you're only targeting your ICP from what's working, you're never going to identify new markets. So take that with a grain of salt. It's helpful for kind of developing the personas that you need to be targeting, but it shouldn't be your be all ends all type of analysis. So use it as a I guess directional guide more than this is firm, this is our ICP, because that's the quickest way to miss out on opportunity. Beyond just looking at the demographic and firmographic aspect, so beyond title, beyond geography, beyond revenue, it's important to pay attention to engagement levels as well. If you look at the way people are purchasing products nowadays, it differs pretty heavily depending on not only the role that they have within a company, but in terms of hierarchy where they sit. So if your entry point for a sales cycle is managers, like the stuff they care about, the way you position your product and the segmentation, the way the segmentation is going to look from a messaging perspective is going to look completely different from a VP who sits in the same function. If I'm talking to a manager of marketing, they're going to care more about the use case. Like, how do I use this? Does it work well? Is it easy to use? Is it something that I can live in from day to day and not get confused or be overwhelmed with complexity? Versus a VP who's going to care more about what is the outcome? If I install this technology, if I purchase this solution, what is the ROI going to look like? How does this affect pipeline and revenue? So in every purchasing decision, every process, there's going to be different use cases and values, even if the product is straightforward, people are looking at it differently. So it's important to pay attention to that and the level of engagement that you're getting from each individual in those processes to know not only what you should be messaging and how you position things, but how frequently you do it as well. And the last piece here is having a really good grasp of your ICP, building out personas and profiles of your prospects and customers allows you to do personalization to a reasonable degree at scale. I think as marketers, we're never going to be as personalized saying, hey, I saw you went to U of O, or I see you managed, as Jennifer does, manage the alum programs to keep people engaged in social. Like, you can't do that in marketing. It's hard to do that without spending time, multiple minutes on each person to do so. So you need to find your data points that you can build that personalization off and then build your programs in a way that allows you to kind of bucket and personalize to the most reasonable level, which typically we try to do it around using the content that people are engaging with to kind of position similar content because we know it's an area of interest. Next slide. All right, so that's ICP. Wrapping that up, we'll take it to the third course, which is use everything in the kitchen. So I think something you've probably experienced, I've experienced in every company I've worked for, is it's really easy to purchase the new shiny thing. And when we're in a state where budgets are being tightened and you can't just test everything all at once, it's important to be extra considerate when it comes to making purchases and purchase only what you need, not just getting I use the example of if sometimes you purchase stuff and to get the deal over the line, the sales rep will offer additional things that you don't actually need or never going to use because it makes it look better from a numbers perspective, but doesn't help you. Just like you wouldn't buy truffles to put into Kraft mac and cheese unless you're I'm not a foodie, obviously. You don't want to put in a Lamborghini engine in a Toyota or a Toyota Camry. No offense to anybody who's driving a Toyota Camry, but it won't fit and it's just more power than you need.
Oh, Drew. Hey, Dom, I also want to add here. Well, I love your metaphor, but I think that the other thing here, again, as we're looking at budgets and every dollar counts, don't end up putting purchasing power into something that you're not going to use because we're getting into the latter half of the year, depending on what your fiscal year looks like. You don't want to end up losing some of that buying power that you have for something that you really need further down the line. And I think that that's really critical too.
Yeah, definitely is. And it ties into the last point, which that's bullet here, which is be paying attention to and understanding of your ROI and the influence on ROI of all the products you purchase. It's really common to do multi-year deals. And if if you're confident in what you're doing, that's great. I definitely encourage it because you'll get the price discounts. And for a lot of MarTech, it's important. It has more value the longer you keep it in place versus replacing it over and over again because it just gets exhausting. But yeah. So last point I'll make on this one. I obviously, as a marketing automation solution, I think and as a marketer, marketing automation is always going to be at the center of everything you're doing. So it's important to kind of make your decisions when it comes to tools, your tool selection and how you're using tools in a way where you're making sure everything's connected. Because we talk about customer journey here. And if your tools don't connect, you're going to miss data points, you're going to miss engagements all across the funnel. So if you don't have a tool that scales with you and can plug into your different portions of your stack, then you're going to miss out on opportunities. And I think the value in marketing automation, beyond just being a centerpiece for collecting data, but it allows you to do some of the things that Jennifer mentioned before, which is using dynamic content to build singular programs with different messaging depending on what ICP you're targeting there, building out your automated journeys that allow you to build something once and then kind of let it run. And obviously you come back and optimize. It's never a set and forget motion, hopefully, but it makes it so you can move on to the next thing before taking your eyes, bringing it back to your previous builds. And then the last piece is definitely around scoring. As I mentioned before, like not every lead is hot and not every lead needs to go to sales. So you need to have some scoring solution in place to kind of be your gatekeeper and keep things in a nurturing state for a much longer period of time before they get past the sales. That way, when the salesperson calls and they say, hey, this is so-and-so with Acton, it's not, who? It's, oh yeah, I just read your blog the other day or something like that. If you're lucky enough to get a response like that, great. That's not always the way, but at least ringing a bell in the back of their mind is super valuable. So I think marketing automation allows you to do that.
Yeah, and thinking about scoring, that's also something that can be used on the customer side of things as well. I think more often than not, scoring is talked about leads, but this is where you can look at how are your customers engaging with your content. And again, going back to that advocacy piece, you can set up scoring models that are going to be just for your customers. And then you can look at who's the most engaged and start to figure out, oh, I should be talking to these people. They're the most engaged, and this is going to become my advocacy pool.
Great. Thanks for that. And on to our final course, your Sous chef. So every great chef has a team behind them, and hopefully it's an individual or an individual team that's their key point of I guess camaraderie or their key collaboration partner. For marketing, that's always going to be sales and account management. So as you all know, the sales and account management teams are the only people who are on the front line that actually engage face-to-face with prospects. And I say face-to-face in quotes because we Zoom most of the time nowadays. But because of that, it's really important that you have a strong relationship with them and a process is in place to not only communicate out program stuff that you're doing on your end, whether you're briefing them on the next campaign launch or scoring changes or these new automated programs that you're building, but also to collect feedback from them and kind of get that I guess in their face-to-face feedback and both objective and subjective on their engagements with prospects. So hearing what's working well from a messaging perspective, what pain points they're hearing really frequently, what the objections they're facing are and how they're typically handling them, because that's going to inform not only your content strategy and what you're messaging, but it also can help identify areas that aren't identify areas that aren't working very well as well. So it creates that feedback loop where you can say, oh, this industry is like, we get a lot of leads here, but none of these convert into opportunities, or this specific region, like they're not purchasing ever. They'll have opportunities, we get to the end, and then it's always a pricing discussion that just doesn't work. So it allows you to identify those things, not only that you wouldn't just see in data, you need to get the subjective feedback as well, which you typically get from regular meeting cadences. Our teams, or on the new business side, we meet with our BDRs weekly and RSMs bi-weekly. So we talk to both sections of the sales team pretty regularly. And then the last piece is definitely using your tech to help with this. If you have CRM, it integrates with your marketing automation tool, like make sure that your sales team is putting inputs in when they're taking leads. If they work them, update them to a working state. If they're being disqualified, mark why it's disqualified. That way you actually have something that you can use to inform the way you're targeting and inform your programs.
Yeah, and similarly on the customer side, especially since people were really interested in that keep grow. So I meet regularly, I attend the account management team meetings, and I attend our customer support team meetings, just to keep my ear on the ground to figure out what are the challenges that customers are facing, maybe what are some key topics and trends that we've identified, where do we need to go start spending some of our resources on creating more content to support our customers or to even support our customer facing teams. So really kind of keeping that feedback loop in motion can help again, throughout that entire life cycle. But it's something that I mean, to be honest, I didn't start doing it until I heard somebody else say it. So hopefully I've inspired somebody to go start attending some other team meetings and creating those relationships and that rapport, so you can really start feeding some of that information back into that keep motion to help nurture your customers along the way.
Yep. You don't have to stay in your lane. Like if on the new business side, I really care about what the customers are saying, because it helps inform our content as well. If the customers are finding really some specific value in our product, like that's something we would focus on and potentially run a campaign on. So it's important to be on both sides, because you learn a lot from your customers, and the customer side can learn a lot about the pain points that our new business prospects are experiencing, which can help us be proactive in customer outreach as well. And to end this slide, I think the biggest piece that helps develop this partnership is to have unified KPIs. So KPIs are key performance indicators. I saw someone asked that question in the chat. So for the new business side, pipeline. Like you need to be developing pipeline. It's ultimately it shows your opportunity growth, hopefully growth, and kind of where you're at from a revenue generating perspective. And on the customer side, it could be something like retention or upsell pipeline as well. So there's KPIs on both sides. It might not be your core one. I know a lot of marketing teams are held to like MQLs for the most part, which is great. It's super important to be monitoring that too. But ultimately, if you want to have that really good alignment with your sales counterparts, you need to have something a little bit further down the funnel that you can hold yourself accountable to. Then I think, yeah. So
Sure. All right. So there we have it. We have gotten to the end of our 4-course tasting menu. I hope that you enjoyed something in each of those courses, or maybe there was a course that was a highlight for you. But what we want to do is we want to leave you with what we think is the recipe for success. So number one, make sure to think of the full customer life cycle. Again, remember, it's a circle, so you don't just get stuck in one stage of the funnel. Number two is sprinkle some sugar on there. Make a great customer or prospect experience by creating personalized touch points. And number three, don't forget your sous chefs. These people are your eyes and your ears, and they really know what's going on from the prospect and customer perspective. And when you put the three of these things together, you are going to find sweet success. And that's what we can hope for all of you today. Thanks so much for joining us. We have a few minutes that we're more than happy to answer any additional questions that come in. And we will hopefully be seeing y'all on the flip side. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you guys. We did get one question in. Joe wants to know, when building and understanding your customer journey from scratch, what is the first thing you would look at?
Ooh.
This is
That's
fun.
a crowded question.
Yeah, it also depends on where your journey's beginning. If you're going to start at the very top of the funnel and then build something throughout the entire funnel. But I always think I've built a few programs from scratch, and I think it's always nice because I get to build the perfect program. Well, what I think would be the perfect program, which may be easier said than done, but I think that then you get to start and think through like all of the best practices and all of the touch points, and you kind of map that out, and then you start to build to it. It's daunting because sometimes there's a lot, but you also have to pick potentially one place to start instead of mapping the entire journey too. So it just kind of depends on what you're doing. Again, I come at it from a customer lens, right? So you think about those different stages of the journey. Since I've been in Acton, we've revamped our welcome series, and right now I'm working on a totally new education series for some of our customers. So it kind of just depends on what the gaps are that you have. Dom, where would you start?
Yeah, I mean, I think prior to even building, I like to take a step back and understand exactly what you're trying to understand about your customer journey. I think that should be the first step in any case, is everyone's going to have some semblance of understanding. If Jennifer and I never spoke, I would have no idea what the customer side looks like. So that might be what I'm looking at, which thankfully we do. So we do. But yeah, you need to kind of map out exactly what you want to know and understand about the customer journey. That way, when you actually do some digging and start looking through your programs to get a good understanding of that, you're directed in your research. And yeah, and like from there, that should help you identify some gaps, whether it's at the decision stage, you don't have any programs running to help support sales once they get down to that bottom of the funnel, or maybe your education on the customer end is not getting engaged with very heavily. So you feel like people are missing out on some really important instructional or educational type of communications. So like I said, taking that step back and kind of filling out your chart of start to finish will help identify those gaps and give you a true starting point.
Right. And then it looks like we just have one more question. Susie wants to know, what are the most important data points when it comes to developing an ICP?
Ooh, another loaded one. It feels like a cop out a little bit, but I think it's ultimately going to depend on your org and what you sell. I think the basis, generally speaking, is going to be either like title and functional responsibility within an organization. Because most products being sold, you're going to have a single one or a couple users, and kind of knowing what that looks like is really important. The other piece, like obviously there's going to be some regional importance. If you don't do business in non-English speaking countries, for example, because you don't have the support for that, like you need to know that up front and be able to account for that with your messaging and make sure that you have some rules in place to make it harder for those to come up and be surfaced for sales. So yeah, sorry for cop out a little bit. It really does depend, but I would say title is probably one of the key ones to get started, and then really just kind of digging into understanding what's working from a firmographic and other demographic component is going to be case by case.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for attending today's webinar. We hope you found some great recipes for success. If you enjoyed today's webinar, please join us on Monday, July 31st at 11 a.m. for How to Succeed at Email Marketing Without Really Trying, presented by me and one of our deliverability consultants. So check that out at acton.com/events for this webinar, as well as other ones that we have coming up. And as a reminder, there will be a brief survey. So if you have the time, please stick around and fill that out for us. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.